Why, hello, everybody. So it is Moscow Mitch Monday. We are the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee coming to you with our weekly online digital demonstration against Mitch McConnell, the 35-year senator from Kentucky, who is for himself above all else. And we are the group working to send him home, wherever home is. I don't really think it's Kentucky anymore. But we are today. It's a special edition of Moscow Mitch Monday because it's a mashup because it's Star Wars Day and it's May 4th. It's also our Moscow Mitch Monday protest. So we're going to put a few different things together for our conversation. But first, a little bit about us. The Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee is an all-volunteer group of activists who are committed to helping to educate our Commonwealth about how Mitch's policies hurt the state and using that information to get him out of office in November. And so I'm Aaron Viles. I am an activist here in Lexington, Kentucky. And because today is it's our online demonstration, you got to be thinking about what your sign would say. So if we were at a time after coronavirus where we could actually get together with a protest safely and to have a opportunity to share our political viewpoints in a way that didn't endanger Papa or Mama, then we would be holding our signs, and I'm going to ask my co-hosts here what their sign would say. But I'm going to say that my sign would be Mitch McConnell is indeed the senator, and we must the resistance must win against the emperor, and that I didn't really work on this very much, but it's got to be a Star Wars reference, I think. Right. So that's me. Who's next?
The Commonwealth strikes back.
Nice. There we go. That's great.
Oh dear. So I guess I should say.
Yeah. Roll with it.
This is Nate coming live at you from my home here in Frankfurt, lovely South Frankfurt, and I'm an activist and musician. And if I had a sign today over in Lexington, where we used to do our protests and demonstrations, my sign would say, "While Mitch got rich, the rest of us got poor." And that's not just idle stuff. There's actually statistics I've been looking up on that we are trailing the rest of our neighboring states in a lot of poverty demographics. And I guess you could look historically. There's a lot of reasons for that, but here's some more history. Mitch McConnell has been in the Senate for 35 years. That's more than a generation, and he's had ample time to help reverse this terrible, terrible poverty trend. And he hasn't, but he's done really well for himself. So, yeah, he got rich, we got poor.
Yep. All right, Doug, how about you? Who are you, where you're from, and what's your sign say? And can you move your camera a little bit so we can see more than half your face?
Broadcasting from Australia.
You're down.
Upside down now.
We are truly volunteers and not professionals.
Yeah, just shift a little bit in your seat, maybe. Move your head a little bit over. There you go. We see you. There you are. Perfect. Now, who are you?
Okay, that's great. I was just reading online that William Shatner did not really say "beam me up, Scotty," but I wish somebody would beam Mitch up to Battleship Galactica and take him away.
Yeah.
That's what my would say.
Yeah, get him out of here. Awesome. So a little bit about today's live stream. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to chat, listen to us chat. And please do make a comment in the comment section. Let us know you're there. Share with us who you are, where you're from, and why you want to ditch Mitch. What would your sign say? Throw that in the comments right now. And a couple things about today's episode. So again, it's Star Wars Day. I think we're going to decide if Senator McConnell is actually Senator Palpatine, also known as the Emperor. We'll touch on new Mitch stories of the week. We've got a lot of Mitch in the news. After the news roundup, we're going to hear from Doug, our ongoing segment following Mitch's money. And Doug, what is it you're digging into today?
I'm looking at contributions from PACs and the main businesses that are contributing to his reelection campaign.
That's great. Great. And then we are going to be joined by Annabelle Nagel. So Annabelle's the newly elected chair of the Kentucky High School Democrats. She's going to share some perspectives with us from young voters, folks who were born when Mitch McConnell was elected, not this last time, but the time before. The guy's been around in office so long that there are actual humans, who have not seen his entire term as a senator. Folks who are in high school are excited to vote, and they're going to talk about why Mitch's leadership is failing our Commonwealth and why we need to get rid of him. So that's what we're doing. So here we go. Let's get into it. Mitch in the news. If folks remember last week, we had a great essay from Kit O'Connell who talked about the blue state bailout. So the idea that Mitch was saying, well, yeah, we're in this coronavirus thing, but states are just going to want money to get bailed out from their bad decisions. And he specifically mentioned pensions, so state pensions. Obviously, you're a voter in Kentucky. You know that state pensions are a huge issue. And the state is working really hard to try to make sure they fund their pension liabilities or pension obligations, that that a pension is a promise, and our pensions to our state teachers, our state employees like firefighters, EMTs, every state employee deserves that pension they were promised, and it's challenging to fund this. The healthcare expenses are through the roof. The ongoing expenses are significant, but right now, our Commonwealth and states across the country don't have tax revenue coming in, right? So they don't have the money to pay a lot of things. So all states are looking at harsh budget cuts unless there are federal revenues that are brought to bear. Obviously, it makes sense to support states. States can't print money. The fact that our economies are in the tank because of our coronavirus response means we need support. Just like right now, they're funding unemployment for people. Just like they're funding, not like they're funding the businesses, because there have been a lot of problems with how they're funding businesses. But of course, Mitch didn't miss a minute to make sure that we were funding businesses. So why in the world wouldn't we fund, the state's ability to keep our employees, to pay their pensions? So that was when he said states should go the bankruptcy route, that was a ridiculous idea, and it was called out by politicians of all caliber. We had politicians like Governor Cuomo, who I think basically challenged him to a fist fight. We had the governor of Maryland, who's in fact a Republican, called Mitch out on how what a bad idea that was. Politicians all around the country thought that was just horrible, and not very many people disagreed. I guess some of the Fox News hosts that Mitch was talking to thought it was a fine idea, but it was legally dubious at best, because states actually can't file for bankruptcy. That's a federal process that states are not allowed to take advantage of, which they shouldn't be taking advantage of, but they should be providing for their folks. So that was one issue. Mitch has now backed off on that. He hasn't said that he would fund states and wouldn't allow for revenue to go to states and cities, but he's at least walked back. He's open to the conversation. But then he found a new horrible thing to talk about in terms of his bright red line of where he would not allow federal support to go. And the new one is that he wants to protect corporations in yet another way. He's said, look, if we are going to be sending workers back, we can't be holding corporations accountable for if they are providing safe workplaces or not. He's like, we want to let corporations basically do whatever they need to do to get back up and running again. And hey, if some, workers get sick and die because they're not willing to socially distance or they're not willing to provide PPE, in Mitch's world, that's fine. We shouldn't have the ability to hold companies accountable. He wants basically a blanket immunity for any corporation whose workers get sick because of their negligence, and and just rushes people back to work, which I guess is, it's very keeping with, his party right now. They're rushing people back to work. That's what they definitely want to do. And of course, if it's Mitch McConnell, then, if you can't find a way to protect a corporation, what's the point of doing the policy, right? So that's his red line right now. But that's a conversation they can actually have in Washington, D.C., right? Because today, on May 4th, they got back together. The Senate reconvened in Washington, D.C., even though Washington, D.C. has not lifted their restrictions, right? So this would definitely be a public gathering of more than 10 people if the Senate gets together, right? And the Senate physician pointed out to the Senate leadership, Mitch McConnell, that they don't even have enough tests for all the senators, which it's not like there's just 100 people who work in the Senate. There are numerous staff. Each office is enormous, probably 20, 30, 40 staff that work in each office, add in the interns. And then, of course, all the people who actually work to maintain the Capitol. So the people, custodians, janitors, etc., all the support staff, the security staff. So the fact that the Senate physician doesn't have 100 tests, shows that there's not nearly the resources that they need to make sure that that whole entity is safe. And the fact that D.C. has not reduced their restrictions, you just got to wonder, why is the Senate doing this? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But Doug or Mitch, any guesses why Mitch has to get people back to D.C. so they can start doing their work in the Senate?
It's just hard to say. It's typical Mitch.
Yeah.
One word.
Nate's got it. I think Nate's got an idea. What is it, Nate?
All right, go ahead, Nate.
Judges.
It's judges. Yeah, he's got to confirm some judges. He's working as hard as he can. That we should feel sorry for Mitch. He works so hard every day. He wakes up thinking about how he can confirm more judges. And that's not easy. You gotta ignore their record. You gotta jam the vote through. You gotta make sure that even if there are legitimate concerns about prior behavior, that stuff gets swept under the rug as quickly as possible, because each judge is so urgently required and necessary. I saw some numbers. It looks like about 30% of federal judges that are currently out there judging are setting our judicial standards for our nation. 30% of them are Trump appointees, rubber stamped by Mitch McConnell, whether they were found to be legitimate, whether they were found to be adequate or not, whether there were concerns about their experience or not. They got through, and that is Mitch's number one legacy. And why does he care about judges so much? Why should we care about judges at all? If he wants to put in some old white guys on federal benches, what do we care? Why should we care about judges, guys?
Oh, he sees the writing on the wall. He is out of step with Kentucky, certainly, and the rest of the country in general, in terms of his sympathy for large corporations and the wealthy, and his lack of sympathy for everyone else, especially people who are impoverished, But so odds are great that he's not going to be able to preside over this kind of opportunity, for a long time. And if we have our way, certainly his career is going to be truncated come November, right? Yay!
Yeah.
But he's, it's what can he do to make a lasting impression? And it's not just him. It's not. I don't think it's that he's so brilliant in and of himself that he woke up. I think it's, he's beholden to moneyed interests, like the Koch brothers, and I don't know what the people who support the Federalist Society, and they tell him, we need this to be your legacy, and he provides. He does as he's told. So,
Yeah.
But that's not right for Kentucky. It's not right for the country, and it certainly is not right for Kentucky.
No, and if you look at, I think Doug, if there's anything you want to touch base on in terms of the judges specifically, why should the left or the moderates of Kentucky care about what judges Mitch is appointing or ramming through?
Well, I think Nate hit it on the head as far as he wants his legacy. That's what Mitch McConnell wants. He is setting the ship, I guess you would say, to take care of the conservative side of America, and has no concerns whatsoever about anything else except conservative. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people like us out here who are not conservative. There are a lot of liberals, and we need a balance. And Mitch is not providing any balance whatsoever. Just think back to when Obama, in his last 2 years in office, how many judges got approved during that time? And Mitch was responsible for those too. So he just needs to be retired on November 3rd.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and that's something worth noting. So today, not precisely, but very close to. So today, May 4th, that means we got 6 months to go, folks. We are in the 6 month, bit of it's not a sprint. I won't say that we're in a sprint. It feels a little bit more like a long run ahead of us. So it's certainly something that we need to be paying very close attention to. We got 6 months to tell the story. But, I think you're right. You both hit it on the head. I think it's, moneyed corporate interests have guys they want put in these seats to take care of corporate interests. It's not about protecting the environment. It's not about protecting workers. It is not about protecting, women's health care. It's about, running a corporate agenda and getting away with as much as they possibly can. All the worker protections that we have right now, they're in jeopardy. If we have, these crazy majorities on these federal courts, the federal courts are some of our last line of defense in terms of protecting workers, in terms of protecting the environment. I've done a lot of work in environmental advocacy throughout my career, and the federal courts often are the last chance we have to make sure that endangered species are protected, that our waters are clean, that our air is getting cleaner. Obviously, we're seeing right now with the coronavirus, there are real public health impacts of dirty air. There's very good research out of Louisville that shows the dirtier the air, the more people are affected by things like coronavirus. So it's absolutely something that we need. Folks who are concerned about public health and the public welfare sitting on those federal benches, not folks who are just going to rubber stamp any corporate arguments to weaken our Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, worker protection laws. So that's what's at stake, folks. It's real. It's serious. It sometimes you just see the right and they get it. They fight for judges. I think it's probably because the abortion issue is so central to so many of them. But let's keep abortion safe, and let's make sure that it's legal, and let's put the social issues kind of aside to a degree. But what I think is really important is that we fight and we know what's happening and what's being decided in this election, and it's everything. It's the environment, it's workers' rights, it's a woman's right to choose, and it's things that we have seen right now. Government works for people. That is the kind of government Democrats want. Mitch McConnell just wants to give money to corporations, no strings attached, and make their life easier. So, that's what we're talking about right now. And I thank you again for joining us. Leave a comment. Let us know you're here. Let us know you're watching. Let us know we should keep doing this live stream. Again, we're all volunteer. We're not getting paid for this. I mean, you can make the argument that that's exactly what it's worth. But I think, what we're doing is sharing, some important ideas about how we fight for our democracy here in Kentucky. And I do want to bring in now, so we've got Doug has done some research. He's done some, digging into Mitch McConnell and where Mitch gets his money from. So we're pretty excited to have Doug share that with us in a segment that we call Following Mitch's Money. And so I'm going to throw it to you, Doug, to share your information with us. Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you. Once again, thank you all for providing me the opportunity to share information about Mitch McConnell. Over the years, he has been assigned many monikers, including the Grim Reaper, Moscow Mitch, and one of our favorites, Ditch Mitch. Well, I have a new one for consideration, Mitch Money. Going back to his early days when he told a group of students that he could sum up all they needed to know about politics, and he wrote these words on the chalkboard: money, money, money. Mitch loves money. Mitch loves PAC. The important thing to remember about PAC: funds can be donated in any amount and can be earmarked for a particular candidate or campaign. All of this thanks to the Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission case where the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that free speech falls with the First Amendment prohibits the government from restricting independent expenditures for political communications by corporations, including nonprofit corporations, labor unions, and other associations. So, who are the primary business/organizations that contribute to Senator McMoney? NORPAC is a nonpartisan primary purpose is to support politicians who support Israel. Vote Sane PAC is a nonpartisan that supports democracy. The Altria Group, tobacco industry primarily, Philip Morris, but invested in Juul. I had to throw in this factoid. Juul spent over $100,000 in lobbying during the 2020 Kentucky General Assembly. Altria is also invested in Cronus. They are developing cannabinoid products. Another factoid, the Ag Commissioner Quarles, Kentucky Ag Commissioner, finally convinced Mitch to pass legislation related to hemp. They're also invested in Helix Innovations. They make nicotine pouches. How many Kentuckians die each year due to tobacco products? Again, it's all about the money, money, money. UPS is a big contributor to Mitch McConnell's Senate campaign. I need help to connect the dots on this one. Is there any connection to the fact that the United States Secretary of Transportation is Elaine Chao, Mitch's spouse? Another a pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly. I want to read all of this. Eli Lilly was founded in 1876 by Colonel Eli Lilly, a man committed to creating high-quality medicines that met real needs in an era of unreliable elixirs peddled by questionable characters. His charge to the generations of employees who have followed was this: take what you find here and make it better and better. Eli Lilly's revenue for 2019 was $22.3 billion, and they had net income of $8.3 billion. I wonder how this amount of revenue and net income related to Eli's primary purpose of the people we serve, starting with those who take our medicines. Again, it's all about the money, money, money. What does all of this buy? Could I walk through the door and into Mitch's office and get into scene? I don't think so. Could the CEO of Altria Group or UPS or Eli Lilly get an appointment? Of course they could. So would all of these organizations and companies give Mitch what he needs if they were not seeing a return on their investment? It's all about the money. Prescription drugs. The House has passed resolutions, sent them to the Senate, calling for lower prescription drug prices, but Mitch won't move on any of those. Again, it's all about the money. Kentuckians want lower drug prices, don't we? We can accomplish this by ditching Mitch McMoney on November 3rd, 2020.
Awesome. That was great. Thanks, Doug. So yeah,
Okay.
some PAC activity, and Mitch McConnell. The thing I think is really interesting about Mitch McConnell is when he first got elected, or when he was first running, he wrote a column about how it was so important to get money out of elections, and we shouldn't, you shouldn't just be able to buy your way into office. That, of course, when he was a young guy and he was running on his ideas and his ideals, which he quickly realized he didn't really have very many of them. So if he was going to keep getting elected, he needed to get some money. So he's been the thorn in the side of any reformer, any politician who's wanted to limit the influence and access of big money in our political system. Mitch McConnell has been there to fight them. John McCain, God rest his soul, did a lot of work on campaign finance reform in the Senate, and had to get stuff done despite and around Mitch McConnell, who's trying to block everything. So, the guy doesn't have any actual belief in democracy being something that should be accessible to all people, right? It's about who's spending the most money, and that's the point, the voice that needs to be heard. So, thanks for pointing that out.
if I can jump in for a second too, when I was listening to that, long list of PAC groups that have given Senator McConnell so much money over the years, I'm reminded of one of the reasons why it's so bad that he tries to get so many judges, approved as quickly as possible, because it's judges like the Supreme Court judges that gave us the Citizens United decision, that really set the framework for the rest of us in terms of campaign finance reform, in terms of whether the small person is going to have a chance to get through to their member of Congress, like Doug was saying. No, I don't think, Doug, that he would see you any day of the week, even if you weren't part of his retirement committee. You may want to keep that under your hat, But it's judges like that we need to have fewer of, not more of, and only by getting rid of Mitch McConnell is that going to happen.
Absolutely. And I think this. So this segment, I think we've got something like 26. We got 26 weeks between now and the election, so that's 6 months we've got to go. We're going to do a following Mitch's money as often as possible, as often as Doug is willing to do some research. But I think we've got a few different things that we want to look at. We had a quick discussion this weekend about the McConnell school. I think at the University of Louisville, there's a McConnell Institute that he's a big fan of course, because his name's on it. He got it established. And I think that's a pretty clear link there between some big money contributions and a policy agenda and some people that come through the McConnell Institute that we should probably be calling Mitch's minions, and kind of what they do in the political scene afterwards. So that's something we'll be digging into. I think we're going to look at the why exactly we call him Moscow Mitch. It's not just because it annoys him. There's also, I think, some legitimate concern about how he's carried water for Russian interests. So we'll look at some of that money. And if there are things that you want to hear from, let us know. If there are things that you're concerned about in terms of Mitch's representation, specific issues that he's been horrible on, that you want to see, where did his money come from, please do leave a comment, send us a message. We're easy to get to. You can find us on Facebook. You can join our Facebook group, share that information with us. It's easy to find. And again, this is have I said this is an all volunteer campaign? So yeah, the more the merrier. We need more people to get involved. You are hereby authorized to be a member and to join us and help spread the truth about Mitch's agenda and how he sets it. So, Doug, anything else you wanted to wrap up with in terms of these PAC contributions, and anyone specifically we should look at?
No, I don't think so. I do want to mention to you that I do have on my to-do list things like the McConnell Scholar and the Russian Connection, Brady, and Chow Family Businesses, that type of thing. So those are some of the things that I'm going to be trying to dig into.
Awesome. That's great. Well, we're looking forward to it. All right, so now we're going into our final segment of the evening. We're going to be joined right now by Annabelle Nail, coming to us from Woodford County. So thanks again, Doug, and we will see you next week. And welcome, Annabelle. Hey there.
Hi.
How are you this evening, Annabelle?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Doing good. Well, we are really excited to have you. You've been a great activist for democratic causes for quite some time, even though you are incredibly young. And tell us a little bit about your backstory, your activist backstory. How did you get here doing this work, and what have you done recently?
So I first got involved in 2018 with Amy McGrath's campaign. I volunteered for her a lot. And then since then, I've just kind of been working on a few campaigns here and there. And then I kind of volunteered with Move On with you guys, and then jumped over to this group after that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, Annabelle, you just undersold your engagement on a certain race that we are all, living the dividends of right now. So Annabelle was an amazing activist for the Andy Bashir campaign and the coordinated campaign of the Democrats. I think, actually, the two folks here, I don't know actually who knocked on more doors, Nate or Annabelle, but you guys probably were kind of neck and neck. We should go back and run the numbers because probably more doors were knocked in Franklin County because of you two than really anyone else by far. So, congratulations again. I like to say it every episode. Thanks everybody for the work you did to help elect Andy Bashir. But no more. There, you cannot find two people who deserve it more in terms of a volunteer effort than these two folks right here. So yeah, whew. Good job. Thank God that Matt Bevin is not our governor right now.
Every night when we watch the governor on TV, we say that.
Yep, yep, it is legit. Look at Georgia. We do not want to be Georgia. All right, so what have you been up to? So Annabelle, you have a role. You have a new-ish role. You haven't officially taken it on yet because you've just been elected to it. What are you?
I am the 2020-2021 chair of the High School Democrats of Kentucky. So that's fun.
Cool. What does that mean exactly?
That's a good question. I just kind of am in charge of all of the high school Dems of Kentucky.
That's great. So you're gonna whip them into shape. You get them out there working hard to elect Democrats.
I am sure gonna try.
You got 6 months to get them ready. We need them. You're gonna need them. I think especially coronavirus. There's nobody better at texting and using the social medias than the high schoolers, right?
Yeah.
This could be the ace in the hole. This could be the way we get rid of Mitch, is the high school kids getting involved. The whippersnappers, the ankle biters. We need them. We need them all now. A horde of fired up Democrats texting other Democrats, shaking them to get involved and to get active and to go through the process of requesting a mail-in ballot. And, this is going to be a harder election than previous elections because there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, I think it's pretty likely that November we'll see another spike in coronavirus, and we need to be thinking about how comfortable people are with safer ways of voting. So yeah, Annabelle, so you did a little bit of work already. You reached out to some other high school Dems, is that right?
Yes, I got 3 high school Dems born in 2002. So one of the years Mitch was elected, to talk about why they strongly dislike him. Yeah.
That's awesome. Uh, well, let's try to figure this out. We're going to do something new. I'm going to try to bring up a couple of videos and see if we can show what your friends shared with us. So we'll start here. Oh, that's not right. Can you folks hear this? Nope. All right. Hey guys, I'm working on the technical side here. Give me just a minute. I think I think we can make it work. Um,
Remember, folks, we are not professionals. We're only doing this because we want to see Mitch McConnell retire once and for all.
there we go. You two, maybe Nate and Annabelle, you can chat a little bit for a minute.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, Annabelle. Do you think, assuming that it's safe enough for everybody to actually be in person, are there any kind of get-togethers that the Kentucky high school Democrats would do, like, I don't know what, conventions or meet and greet type things? Is that part of the overall stuff y'all do?
I know once a year we try to do a lobby day in Frankfurt.
Oh, cool.
So that'll probably happen next spring-ish or February-ish. And there's the Kentucky Young Democrats convention every year. I know that's been postponed, so I'm not sure when that is now, but we'll definitely be doing that whenever it is.
That's wonderful. Do the I know some states have, like, governors institutes and sort of public organizations that support high schoolers and have them come together to learn about government and whatnot. Is there something like that that Kentucky does? Like that would invite the high schoolers, and not just for lobbying, but also just to show sort of the way the government works.
Not that I've heard of, but I will definitely be trying to find one for us because that would be very beneficial to get everyone out too.
Yeah, like this is what. Although I guess you could also roll that into the whole lobby day too. Like actually meet with your state senator and representative and do all that kind of stuff. I did something like that when I was years and years ago, a high schooler like you, and it was made a really good influence. Haven't ever missed an election since then. Well, I couldn't vote at the time, but.
That's awesome. All right, so we do have something queued up. So I think we're going to be able to bring some video in, and Annabelle, you can tell me a little bit about who this gentleman is, and then I'll go ahead and hit play.
Okay, so this is Victor Avalos. He's a junior at Woodford County High School, and he is also a first time voter this year.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. All right, so Annabelle, do you want to do a quick summary of what he was saying? So I think we had some audio issues, and maybe just do a quick recap of what he was talking about.
Yeah, so he was basically trying to talk about how global warming and climate change have largely impacted our country and planet, and how Mitch McConnell has played a large role in that and not shown any real attempt to help at that.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, and was it Victor? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's see. I think we're queuing up a second one. Hold on one second. Um,
Yeah, I'm struck by the fact that there hasn't been a single moment of Victor's life or Annabelle yours where we didn't know that we were in a significant climate change, global warming crisis. Like you guys are in a sense the first generation where there hasn't been a second that you haven't been sort of under that shadow. And of course, Mitch was around for all of it,
yeah, and fighting for coal the entire time.
fighting for.
Absolutely in conflict with a long-term sustainable. All right, so we got the second one queued up and ready to go.
So this is Mackenzie Pereira. She's not going to be able to vote this year, but she was born in 2002. And she is going to be talking about healthcare and Mitch's impact on that.
right. Cool. All right, and then so do you think healthcare is an issue that a lot of your friends care about, Annabelle?
Um, Honestly, I don't think a lot of young people pay that much attention to it, but it's something that they should definitely be caring about.
Yeah, yeah. That was a really interesting point, though, that how important it is that right now in the coronavirus outbreak that people have access to healthcare. It's a it's a common sense thing, but we've got such an messed up healthcare system where so many people's healthcare is linked to their job, and when you've got something like coronavirus affecting all of us, and you lose your job, then you don't have your health care when you need it most. So it is really, there's a lot of just questions about why we have the healthcare system that we have. And I'll tell you what, we're not going to get a better healthcare system under Mitch McConnell's leadership in the Senate. That is absolutely for sure. So I think we've got another one getting close to queued up here. Let's see. Let's see. It's working. Nope. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was, the age of Victor and Mackenzie and Annabelle, and health insurance was like the last thing on my mind. But one thing I did know was that I was by a nice hospital. That if something bad happened to me or a member of my family, we could go there quickly and get seen. And one of the things that's happening, with the COVID epidemic, is that rural hospitals that have depended for so long on these kind of so-called elective surgeries and procedures, can't practice them right now, can't get money for them. So there's actually a threat to rural hospitals all around the country, and I'm sure here in Kentucky as well. And that's another role that Mitch McConnell could have played for the positive, is trying to shore up these kinds of hospitals. Which, if I was a teenager out in, Pike County or McCreary or someplace that's, a little bit off the beaten path, I would probably want to have a hospital near me that I or my parents could drive to quickly, if we needed to fix a broken leg or something. So.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got one queued up now, and I think it's going to work. And who's this, Annabelle?
This is Alex Woodruff. She's also a junior at Woodford County, and she is also a first-time voter, and she'll be talking about how important safe elections are.
Fantastic. All right, that's great. And maybe you can just recap that one as well. We had a little bit of, it was really soft. I don't know how, if the audio came through or not.
Yeah, so she was basically talking about how COVID-19 has played a role on changing elections and how she doesn't really want Kentucky to be like, or the rest of the country to be like Wisconsin was, and that we should have a safe way to vote this June.
Awesome. Great. Well, hey, Annabelle, thank you so much for bringing, the voices from 2002, right? Everyone was born the same year that Mitch was elected back in 2002, 18 years ago, when he was elected, not the first time, but about halfway through his Senate career. So yeah, we are actually looking to find folks who were born in all of his election years. So back to 1984 and every 6 years, 1990, 1996. If you are in any of those years, let us know. Message us, leave a comment on the Facebook page. We'd like to line up videos and have you share your perspective. The idea that people, who've been alive as long as this guy's been in office, and not, they're not all young like Annabelle. There's some folks who, not quite me, maybe not quite Nate, but there are folks who, have been around for a while, who have known nothing but Mitch McConnell. How horrible. I mean, we got to do it for them. They got to see a more hopeful future about what our democracy could be. So, at any rate, Annabelle, thanks again for corralling your friends and getting. I hope they watched. Share the link with them so they can see themselves on the internet, right? Because that's probably something they've never seen before. 18-year-olds probably never seen themselves on the internet.
Sarcasm alert.
I need a font, right? A little on-screen graphic. Aaron's kidding. All right, so I did. There was one thing I really wanted to just touch base on before we leave. See if we can make this determination. I'll leave it to you guys. I don't know. We think that this is Moscow Mitch in fact Sith McConnell? Is he a clone of the Emperor who was, brought to life through some weird dark magic / science, specifically designed to destroy our democracy? Is it part of a dark the dark side of the Force plot? What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. Darth McConnell.
Annabelle, have you seen any of the Star Wars films?
I have not.
And Aaron and I suddenly feel really old.
No, just to be clear, I need to get this thing done because my 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old, is desperate to watch some Star Wars today. So she knows it's Star Wars Day. She's been with me to see all the movies in the theater. Back when we could do that, we would go to see the movies when they were first released. So I've kept that family tradition alive. But yeah, I don't want to make you feel weird, Annabelle, because I think you're probably not weird. I think a lot of 17, 18-year-old kids have never seen a Star Wars film. But yeah. So the joke here is that the Emperor is the source of all evil and the dark side of the Force. And he actually got his start as a senator. So Senator Palpatine, prequel films, was kind of behind the scenes, setting things up for the Clone Wars, and ultimately was revealed. He destroyed the Senate, took all the power of the universe kind of to himself as the singular emperor, and then the power of the dark side of the Force turned into this very ugly individual, a lot like Sith McConnell that we're looking at right here. So if you look at Sith McConnell when he was first elected Emperor McConnell, he didn't look nearly as evil. But the use of that evil power has certainly made him look more evil, just like the Emperor. Of course, in the most recent film, he looked horrible. He was very scary in the newest final installment of the Skywalker saga. So, at any rate, folks, I want to thank you all for bearing with us when we have our little technical difficulties. Appreciate it very much that folks are still watching. Please, if you like the live stream, share it with your friends. It shows up as a video as soon as we're done here. It's available to be shared. You don't have to watch it live, although I think it's most fun when it's live because you're never sure when we're going to mess it up. You just know it's going to happen. but we do want to get people engaged. What should people do, Nate? Now they've got some information about how bad Mitch's agenda is, his newest thing about providing, blanket immunity to corporations to let them get away with killing their workers if they rush things back with the coronavirus and don't make sure that their workplace is safe. They're going to get blanket immunity if Mitch McConnell has his way. What should people do with that information, Nate?
Well, Aaron, in addition to, of course, voting in November the right way, which is not the Mitch McConnell way, we encourage you to send letters to the editor. And we have on our website, retirementformitch.com, a page. It's retirementformitch.com/LTE. LTE stands for Letters to the Editor. And there you will find a link to or email address to your local paper. So here in Franklin County, where I live, that would be the State Journal. So you can actually send an email to Steve Stewart, the publisher, and he very well might publish it because they want to hear from voters just like you. The other thing that we can do, of course, is call the offices of Senator McConnell and harangue him for not doing any of the 100,000 million billion things that he should be doing right now while he's busy trying to appoint judges and whatnot. But I think all the points that we've made on the show, especially having to do with letting corporations off the hook and big businesses off the hook for hurting their employees if they're not taking good care of them in the midst of this epidemic, that's a good thing to, bring up that you don't like that and you're not going to vote for someone who supports that.
Yeah. And so we brought Doug back in just for a minute because I did want to give Doug credit because it seems like every week we do this, Doug has now gotten another letter to the editor published. Doug, where was your most recent letter to the editor published? Doug? Maybe Doug stopped listening. That might have happened. Doug's not listening to me, that's for sure. All right, so I'm gonna pull it up because I think I have it on my phone right here, and I'm so impressed with Doug's ability to get letters to the editor published. He's now been published in I think at least 4 newspapers.
Wow.
Yeah, and the great thing is he just wrote the one letter to the editor, and he shared it a number of different times. So it is the Evansville Courier that has published Doug's letter to the editor along with a number of other newspapers. So we're going to give Doug more credit. He also was the person that came up with this whole database of counties, their newspapers, and where you send the letter to the editor. So that's there on our website. Go use it. Take some talking points that we've shared here and write a letter to the editor. Take whatever issue is that fires you up and makes you excited for November to come so we can get rid of Mitch McConnell and share that information. And if that's just too much for you, to send a letter to the editor, send an email, you don't have to actually write a letter. You can just write it in an email and email it to the paper. That's easy. You don't need to use a fax machine. You don't don't need to put a stamp on anything. But you could also just, while you're online, surf on over to because he surfed the internet, right? Surf on over to Mitch McConnell's Facebook page. Thank you for that demonstration, Nate. And leave a comment there. When he's trying to just throw partisanship into every single thing that's happening or not happening in the Capitol, go ahead and just comment and make sure everyone, because he is blaming Nancy Pelosi for everything, right? It's all Nancy Pelosi's fault. We just are the Republicans in the Senate, we just want common sense things to, provide blanket immunity for all corporations. And there are lots of fights queuing up, right? The coronavirus relief, there's going to need to be support for states. We've talked about that ad nauseum. He should be supporting states. They're having huge holes blown in their budget. Our cities are in there are huge problems with our cities, right? Lexington, Louisville are desperate for additional revenue and resources. They're going to need to start furloughing workers, first responders, teachers. This is going to be really rough. And so that's something that we need Mitch McConnell to step up. And if we just let him say, oh, yeah, states need to figure this out on their own, he could get away with it. But if we're there writing letters to the editor, making comments on his Facebook feed, showing this kind of voice of reason, I think there's a lot of value in just being a little bit more, reminding people what's really at stake here. So, at any rate, any final words of wisdom you want to impart upon the folks, Nate?
All I know is that if Doug gets that letter published one more time, we're going to start a regular feature called "Where's Doug This Week?"
Where can you read Doug?
That's right.
Yeah, he's very, very well written letter to the editor. They can't say no to it, So yeah, go ahead and write your own, folks. Get on that. All right, so next week we're going to be back here. We're going to be live at 7 o'clock. We'll probably have some technical difficulties along the way. It'll be fun for everyone to go through that with us. But very exciting. We are going to have a guest host. So we're going to be joined by Denise Gray. I don't know if folks know Denise, but she's phenomenal. She's just high energy, wonderful, very engaged in politics for a very long time. She actually ran for state senate against Ralph Alvarado. Unfortunately for our state, she did not win because he is horrible. He's the guy that's a quote-unquote doctor, and he oversees healthcare for a number of different retirement homes. You can find out which ones are his because they're the ones that are the worst in the state in terms of how they provide care for their residents. And he's also the guy who's trying to change the rules, the laws in Frankfurt about how retirement centers require care. So a lot of inside action there that's not very good for the folks who actually live in retirement centers. And obviously we're seeing right now with coronavirus just how important it is that infection care is managed well in retirement centers. But at any rate, unfortunately, that was her first race. She didn't win, but she's very active in politics. She's very active in government, and she's going to bring her perspective here on our live stream next Monday, not next Moscow Mitch Monday. Join us at 7. And I want to just say again, thanks everyone for tuning in, for bearing with us, and for supporting our efforts to get rid of Mitch McConnell. Let's do this, people. We can do it. I'm confident we can do it. 6 months, we can make it happen, right, Nate?
Right on. Let's plan a big old retirement party.
Awesome.
Seth McConnell.